At my own wedding, I stood at the altar and told everyone, I want to share something with everyone who came to celebrate with us today, then connected my phone to the church projector. What appeared on screen destroyed everything. But let me back up to explain how I reached that moment of perfect methodical revenge. You never expect to discover your own bedroom featured on adult websites while scrolling through videos at midnight on a Thursday. The gray-striped wallpaper was unmistakable. The same pattern I'd stared at every morning for 2 years while Clara got ready for work. The same crooked curtains, the wooden headboard I'd assembled myself, even the blue ceramic lamp Clara insisted on buying despite my protests about our color scheme. Then she walked into frame. Clara Whitmore, daughter of Father Richard Whitmore, my supposed virgin fiancé, who'd made me wait 28 months for our wedding night, because purity was a gift from God. The timestamp read 3 months ago, on a Tuesday, exactly when I was in Chicago, working 16-hour shifts on a server migration project, earning money for our future, while she was apparently earning money through entirely different means. This wasn't some spontaneous moment captured on a phone camera, professional lighting, multiple camera angles, crystal clear audio. This was a carefully planned production. The man with her was older, maybe 35, moving around our bedroom with practiced familiarity. Clara wasn't acting like someone caught in passion. She was directing, suggesting positions, clearly in charge of the entire operation. Instead of raging like most men would, I closed the video with clinical detachment and opened a new folder on my desktop. My IT background had taught me the importance of proper backup procedures and comprehensive data collection. I spent the next hour downloading everything I could find, creating a filing system that would have impressed my project management professors. The next morning, Clara hummed while making coffee in her pale blue Sunday dress, the kind that screamed wholesomeness and belonged in church bulletin advertisements. She kissed my cheek with the same lips that had been quite busy with her mysterious visitor, pouring cream with hands that had been occupied with tasks definitely not covered in any church manual. "Sleep well?" she asked with that pure, innocent smile that had convinced me she was different from every other woman I'd known. "Like a baby," I replied, watching her butter toast with careful precision she brought to everything in her carefully constructed life. Over the following weeks, I became a dedicated student of my own fiancé. Not romantically, but methodically, like a scientist studying an interesting specimen. Clara followed patterns with military precision. Coffee with exactly 2 spoonfuls of sugar. Morning prayers at 8 a.m. kneeling beside our bed for 15 minutes. Work at the church office from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. But patterns had exceptions more revealing than the patterns themselves. When she claimed to visit sick parishioners on Tuesday, she returned with takeout from a restaurant across town. A receipt wedged between car seats showed a purchase time 3 hours later than her supposed return. When prayer meetings allegedly lasted 4 hours instead of the usual 90 minutes, she claimed they'd spent extra time praying for troubled marriages in the community. My forensic analysis of our shared cell phone account revealed text messages to unknown numbers during supposed prayer times. Data usage spikes when she claimed to be disconnected from worldly distractions, and location services pinging towers nowhere near where she said she'd been. But my favorite discovery was recurring charges for studio space rentals. $150 every other Friday for 6 months, automatically debited from our wedding savings account. I called the number during lunch, pretending interest in family photos. "Studio space rentals, this is Janet," answered a cheerful voice. "We have several options," Janet explained enthusiastically. "Our most popular package includes a residential setting, fully furnished bedroom, living room, kitchen, very authentic looking. Most clients use it for lifestyle shoots." "What kind of professionals?" I asked. "Photographers, videographers, content creators, people who need realistic domestic environments but don't want to use their own homes for obvious reasons." So, Clara wasn't just using our apartment as her workplace. She was paying for professional studio space, too. The irony wasn't lost on me that our future together was being funded partly by her alternative career activities. That weekend, I told Clara I needed to visit my college roommate Marcus in Indianapolis, who'd actually moved to Seattle 2 years ago. But she had no way of knowing since she'd never shown interest in my friends. I drove exactly 12 miles out of town, checked into a roadside motel with reliable Wi-Fi, and used their connection to monitor our apartment building's security cameras through an app I'd installed for legitimate security purposes. A silver sedan pulled into our parking space with the confidence of someone who'd made this trip many times. Cole Barnes emerged carrying professional camera equipment and a tripod case. Clara appeared 30 seconds later, looking around nervously before following him inside. She wore the blue dress I'd complimented just last week. They spent 3 hours and 14 minutes in our apartment, exactly the right duration for content creation I'd observed in the videos. They left separately, Clara departing first after what appeared to be a brief argument. She looked upset, gesturing emphatically, while Cole remained calm. Clara texted me, "Missing you already, spending quiet evening with scripture reading." By noon the following day, I'd confirmed our apartment had been transformed into a private studio at least 7 times over 4 months. Always weekdays when I was at work. Always during the same 2-hour window. Always with professional production values. The man appeared to be freelance photographer Cole Barnes, based on his poorly secured social media accounts, and professional website advertising intimate lifestyle photography for adventurous couples at $500 per 2-hour session. 3 weeks before our wedding, I finalized my plan. Our church had installed a new projection system 6 months earlier, high-definition capability with wireless connectivity, accessible through any laptop with the right adapter. I'd helped install it myself, volunteering my expertise for what Father Richard called the Lord's work in the modern age. How providential. The plan required systematic precision my IT background had prepared me for. Every variable needed controlling, every outcome predicted, every backup system in place. This wasn't about anger or hurt feelings. This was about strategic information management and optimal data presentation. I purchased a wireless HDMI adapter and tested it thoroughly with our home projector, running multiple connectivity tests. The connection was perfect, video quality excellent, audio crystal clear. I spent lunch breaks cataloging every video, timestamp, and technical detail, proving premeditation rather than spontaneous weakness. This wasn't about a woman having a past. This was about systematic deception while planning a marriage built on deliberate lies. Clara noticed my improved mood, but attributed it to pre-wedding excitement. "You seem different lately," she observed while we addressed wedding invitations. "More relaxed." "I'm excited to start our life together," I said, which was technically true from a certain perspective. 2 weeks before the wedding, Cole Barnes appeared at our apartment while Clara was at church. Average height, professionally casual, the kind who worked in media or real estate, where appearance mattered more than substance. "Is Clara here?" he asked, looking past me with the familiarity of someone who knew our layout intimately. "No, she's at church. Can I help you?" "You're the fiancé." He studied my face, probably comparing me to whatever description Clara had given. "I'm Cole Barnes. I'm a photographer. I've worked with Clara on some projects." "What kind of projects?" He smiled in a way meant to be charming, but came across predatory. "Artistic photography. Portfolio development for her modeling aspirations." She hasn't mentioned any modeling aspirations. "It's been very private, selective clientele, high-end artistic work." I opened the door wider. "Would you like to come inside? I'd love to hear more about Clara's artistic interests." He declined, backing away nervously. "I'll catch up with her later." "Should I tell her you stopped by?" "Actually, maybe don't mention it. I wanted to surprise her with some prints from our last session." I watched him drive away, then immediately called Clara at the church. The silence stretched longer than normal phone delays when I mentioned Cole Barnes and photography work. "I did some headshots last year for church directory updates," she finally said. "Nothing serious or professional." This guy seemed to think it was more involved, said something about selective clientele and artistic work. Some people exaggerate their importance to sound more successful. That evening, she was unusually affectionate, almost aggressively so. She cooked my favorite dinner, suggested romantic movies instead of news, and spent considerable time discussing how much she valued honesty and communication. "Promise me something," she said as we fell asleep. "If you ever have doubts about us, you'll talk to me first before making any big decisions." "I promise," I said. "Will you make me the same promise?" "Of course." So, if you had any secrets affecting our marriage, you'd tell me now, rather than let me find out later. She was quiet so long, I thought she'd fallen asleep. Yes, she finally whispered, I would tell you. 1 week before our wedding, Clara's father announced Channel 7 News would film portions of our ceremony for a feature about traditional weddings in small-town America. The novelty of a priest's daughter getting married in her father's church constituted human interest news worthy of regional television coverage. Isn't that wonderful? Clara asked, though her expression suggested she found the prospect nerve-wracking. We'll be on television. It's perfect, I agreed, meaning it completely. The television coverage would provide additional documentation proving my evidence wasn't fabricated. Professional cameras recording would eliminate any doubt about authenticity. That same day, I received a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. It's about Clara. I met Cole Barnes at a coffee shop across town. I think you know why I'm here, he said, sliding into the booth with nervous energy. Enlighten me. Clara told me about your conversation, about the photography work. He stirred coffee slowly. Look, I don't want trouble. What happened between Clara and me was consenting adults making private decisions. You're not angry? He seemed surprised by my calm response. Should I be? Most guys would be furious. I'm not most guys. What exactly do you want, Cole? He leaned forward, lowering his voice. I want to make sure those videos don't surface anywhere public. They could ruin Clara's reputation, her father's career, everything she's worked to build. What videos? Don't play stupid, I know you've seen them. They're out there on multiple sites. I pulled out my phone and opened a browser. Show me. He shifted uncomfortably. They might have been taken down recently. Look, I'll pay you. Whatever you want, $5,000 cash, no questions asked. What makes you think I have any control over what becomes a problem? Because you're about to marry her. You have the most to lose if this comes out publicly. I smiled for the first time in our conversation. Cole, I don't make deals with people who don't have anything I want. What do you want? I want a memorable wedding. I left him sitting there and drove home to find Clara pacing with agitated energy, suggesting Cole had already called to report our meeting. We need to talk, she said the moment I walked in. I know you met with Cole. He called completely panicked. Evan, I can explain everything. She perched on the couch edge, hands twisted in her lap, like preparing for confession that might save or damn her soul forever. Before I met you, I was in a very dark place spiritually. I made choices against everything I'd been raised to believe. What kind of choices? I let Cole convince me to make some videos, private videos for his artistic portfolio. How private? Very private, intimate in ways I'm ashamed to think about now. How many videos? She flinched. Several, maybe more than several. Where were they filmed? Here, in our apartment. When? She started crying. Tears that looked genuine, and probably were. Even after we got engaged. But Evan, I was trying to end it. I thought if I cooperated one last time, gave him what he wanted, he'd delete everything and we could move forward clean. Did he give you the files? He said he did, but obviously they're still accessible somehow. I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner. Yes, you should have. Are you angry? I considered the question seriously. I'm disappointed. That's worse than angry. Maybe it is. What can I do? How can I fix this? I looked at her tear-streaked face, her desperate expression, genuine panic at losing everything built on systematic lies. I don't want to cancel the wedding. Relief flooded her features. You don't? No, I want to have the most honest ceremony possible. Yes, completely honest. I think honesty should be shared with everyone who cares about us. What do you mean? I stood and kissed her forehead gently. I mean, our wedding is going to be exactly what it should be, a celebration of truth. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather and terrible timing for anyone hoping to postpone the inevitable. By 7 a.m., I was showered, dressed in my rented tuxedo, reviewing my final checklist with project manager thoroughness. The wireless HDMI adapter was hidden inside the altar flower arrangement. Invisible among white lilies and baby's breath, Clara had chosen for their symbolic representation of purity and innocence. My laptop was loaded with carefully edited compilation. Just enough content to make the point without turning our church service into adult theater. I'd chosen clips for maximum impact and minimum vulgarity, focusing on timestamps and clear facial recognition rather than graphic details. The television crew arrived setting up cameras and testing audio with efficient professionalism. The producer interviewed Father Richard about family traditions and community values. "There's something special about a father performing his daughter's wedding ceremony," she said with practiced sincerity. "It represents passing responsibility from parent to spouse, completing a sacred circle." Father Richard nodded gravely. "Clara has always been the light of our family, pure of heart, devoted to her faith, an example to other young women about the rewards of patience and virtue." Clara arrived at 9 a.m. with her mother and sisters, a parade of white fabric and nervous energy. She looked genuinely beautiful, radiant in the way only brides and lottery winners manage, wearing the kind of dress featured in bridal magazines for traditional ceremonies. "You look perfect," I told her during our brief moment alone. "I'm so nervous," she admitted, hands trembling as she adjusted her veil. "About what?" "Everything. The cameras, the crowd, starting our new life together." "Don't be nervous about our new life. It's going to be exactly what we both deserve." The church was full. 237 people according to my count. Family, friends, curious neighbors, and the television crew documenting this celebration of traditional values for their human interest segment about small-town America. The organ began playing at exactly 11 a.m., filling the sanctuary with traditional wedding march that had soundtracked thousands of ceremonies just like this one, except for the unique element I was about to introduce. Father Richard took his position wearing formal robes and the expression of a man about to perform the most important ceremony of his career. The bridesmaids processed in pale pink dresses, followed by groomsmen in matching tuxedos. Everything proceeded according to traditional protocol. Then Clara appeared with her mother, and the congregation stood in unison. She was a vision of everything a small-town wedding should represent: innocence, beauty, hope, tradition. Her vintage lace dress had a cathedral train requiring 2 flower girls to manage. Her grandmother's veil connected her to generations of family tradition. Her bouquet was symbolically pure white roses and baby's breath. She walked down that aisle like floating, eyes fixed on me with absolute trust and love and confidence of someone who believed their secrets were safely buried. When she reached the altar, her father stepped forward with dignity of a man who'd spent his entire life preparing for this moment. "Dearly beloved," Father Richard began in his most resonant pulpit voice, "we are gathered here today in the sight of God and this congregation to join together this man and this woman in holy matrimony, which is an honorable estate instituted by God. Marriage is not to be entered into lightly," he continued, "but reverently, discreetly, and in accordance with the purposes for which it was instituted by God." He looked directly at Clara with paternal pride. "Clara has been a blessing to our family and congregation from the day she was born. She embodies the virtues of purity, faithfulness, and devotion that make marriage strong and lasting." This seemed like the appropriate moment for my contribution. I stepped forward and addressed the congregation in a clear, calm voice carrying to every corner of the sanctuary. "Father Richard, before we proceed with our vows, I'd like to share something with everyone who came to celebrate with us today." The priest looked surprised but nodded encouragingly. "Of course, son." I reached into my jacket and pulled out my phone, connecting it to the wireless adapter hidden in the flower arrangement. The connection established immediately, exactly as I'd tested dozens of times. "I believe marriage should be built on complete honesty," I announced with the calm authority I used for technical presentations. "So, I want everyone to see exactly who they're witnessing, unite in holy matrimony." The projection screen behind the altar flickered to life with crystal clear high-definition video. For 3 seconds, there was absolute silence as people processed what they were seeing. Then gasps started, followed by exclamations, followed by chaos erupting when 200 people simultaneously realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. The audio quality was excellent, thanks to our church's superior sound system, picking up every detail with crystal clarity. Clara's face went white as communion bread. "Evan, stop this right now." Why? I asked with genuine curiosity. These are beautiful memories, very artistic. Cole did excellent camera work, don't you think? Father Richard stared at the screen in horror as his daughter performed acts decidedly not covered in any premarital counseling curriculum. "Turn it off!" Clara screamed, lunging for my phone. "But we haven't reached the best part yet," I said, advancing to a particularly athletic sequence. This was filmed 3 weeks ago while we were addressing wedding invitations together. The congregation had moved beyond gasps into full pandemonium. Some stood for better views. Others covered their eyes with shaking hands. Several elderly parishioners looked like they needed medical attention, and at least a dozen phones were recording everything for social media posterity. The television crew kept filming with professional dedication, capturing every moment of what would undoubtedly become the most watched local news segment in station history. Father Richard found his voice, though higher than usual. "You planned this entire thing deliberately." "I planned to marry an honest woman," I replied with calm precision. This seemed like the most efficient way to determine if that was possible. "The timestamp is right there for everyone to verify," I pointed out helpfully. 3 weeks ago, 2 p.m. on Tuesday. I was at work earning money for our honeymoon, while Clara was earning money in our bedroom through alternative revenue streams. "You're completely insane," Clara sobbed, carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks in black streaks. "Actually, I'm methodical," I corrected patiently. "There's a significant difference, though I understand the confusion." Father Richard's hands shook as he pointed at the screen. "Clara, tell me this is some horrible mistake." She looked at her father with desperate eyes, then at me, then at 200 people staring in various states of shock, disgust, and morbid fascination. "Daddy, I can explain everything." His hand moved faster than anyone expected. The slap echoed through church acoustics like a gunshot, cutting through murmurs with sharp finality. Clara stumbled backward, holding her face. "You've destroyed everything," Father Richard said, with biblical authority and paternal disappointment that would haunt her forever. "Our family name, our reputation, our church, everything we've built over decades of faithful service." "I tried to stop," Clara wailed. "I tried to end it before the wedding." "By making more videos?" I asked, advancing to the next clip. "Because based on timestamps and metadata analysis, your efforts to end things looked remarkably similar to continuing them." The crowd grew restless, some guests leaving while others pushed closer for better views. The television producer made frantic hand signals, torn between journalistic gold and potential lawsuits. I ejected my phone and slipped it back into my jacket, ending the presentation now that everyone had seen enough to understand the complete situation. The screen went dark, but damage was comprehensive, permanent, and perfectly documented. "Ladies and gentlemen," I addressed the congregation with professional calm, "thank you for attending what was meant to be a celebration of traditional marriage values. I hope this educational experience has been illuminating for everyone involved." I started walking toward the aisle, footsteps echoing on marble floor Clara had walked down minutes earlier as the blushing bride. "For what it's worth, Reverend, your daughter is extraordinarily talented in her chosen field. I'm sure she'll find her true calling eventually." I turned to Clara one final time, looking down at her kneeling in her ruined wedding dress among scattered rose petals and fragments of her carefully constructed life. "For richer or poorer, in sickness and in health," I said, borrowing from vows we'd never exchanged traditionally. "Mostly poorer now, I imagine, but that's the beauty of honest assessment." The congregation erupted into fresh chaos as I walked down that aisle, past 200 shocked faces, past still rolling television cameras, past the life I'd thought I wanted, toward whatever came next. Behind me, Clara screamed my name, begging me to come back, promising she could explain everything if I'd give her one more chance. But I'd heard enough explanations to last several lifetimes. I pushed through church doors into bright Saturday sunshine, got into my car, and drove away from the most honest wedding ceremony our small town had ever witnessed. 6 hours later, at a roadside gas station in another state, my phone buzzed with a news alert. "Wedding ceremony goes viral after groom exposes bride's secret life." I deleted the alert without reading the full article and kept driving toward my new future,